When the world stands between you and your love, you have two choices: surrender or make the world kneel. Lord Bjorn chose fire, and Elena's name became the song of burning empires. But even the mightiest lords learn that some flames burn so bright they either illuminate paradise or consume everything in their path. The great council chamber had never witnessed such fury. Representatives from every major Viking clan sat around the massive oak table. The ice wolves, blood ravens, storm bears, all united by one purpose: stopping Lord Bjorn, the Iron Wolf. "He's lost his mind," growled Jarl Magnus, fist pounding the table. 3 kingdoms burned in 2 months, all for some Valhalla witch. Lord Eric nodded grimly. "Saxons flee north, Franks build walls, and every merchant assumes we come to burn cities. Bjorn's madness destroys our trade, alliances, everything." But none spoke the truth. That Lord Bjorn, master of the largest fleet, commander of 10,000 warriors, no longer fought for gold or glory. He fought for love, making him more dangerous than any berserker. Proof lay scattered across the table. Londinium, smouldering ruins when its king refused returning Elena. Rouen, blackened stones after its lord tried ransoming her. Paris paid tribute rather than face Bjorn's wrath. "We must act," declared Chieftain Olaf. "Offer him anything: gold, land, ships, anything except the girl." "You think we haven't tried?" spat Magnus. "We offered kingdoms, promised him crown of all northern lands. He burned Hedeby because one merchant suggested Elena wasn't worth destruction." The chamber fell silent. Bjorn commanded worship from his men, who'd follow him into Ragnarok. His genius was legendary, fury unstoppable, and love had transformed him from rational leader into something more terrifying, a force of nature. "There is one option," said Sigrid the Wise from Shadows. "The girl herself. If Elena were to reject him, choose duty over desire." "She'll never do it," Eric interrupted. "They say she loves him as fiercely. They say she stands beside him, watching kingdoms burn, and calls it beautiful." Sigrid's eyes glittered. "Then may the gods help us all. When love like theirs takes root, it either blossoms into legend or grows into the tree from which worlds hang." Aboard the dragon ship Raven's Fury, Lord Bjorn stood at the prow like Nordic legend itself. Autumn wind whipped through his golden hair as he gazed toward distant smoke from what had been Quentovish. Behind him, warriors celebrated victory with conquest songs, but Bjorn heard none of it. His ice-blue eyes fixed on the woman beside him, his entire world. Elena of Valhalla was unlike any woman who'd lived. Where others learned weaving and healing, she mastered war. Where they spoke domestic duties, she planned raids, leaving kingdoms trembling. Her raven hair flew like battle banners, violet eyes holding fierce intelligence that had captured Bjorn's soul. "They're calling you mad," Elena said softly over wind. "Lords, kings, even your men. They say love made you reckless." Bjorn turned, his massive frame casting shadows. At 6.5 feet, with shoulders broad enough to carry kingdoms, he was a giant among men. Battle scars marked his arms. The great war axe had drunk countless enemies' blood. Yet looking at Elena, all that power softened infinitely. "Let them call me mad," he replied, tracing her jaw with fingers that could crush skulls but touched her like spun glass. "Madness is sanity, refusing compromise. I won't compromise about you." Elena leaned into his touch, covering his hand. 3 kingdoms, Bjorn, reduced to ash because rulers thought they could use me as bargaining. How many more burn before the world learns we cannot be separated? "As many as it takes," Bjorn answered without hesitation. "If every king from here to Constantinople stands between us, they'll learn Elena of Valhalla is mine, I am hers, and no force in Midgard changes that truth." His certainty was absolute, carrying weight of a man who had never known defeat. Warriors stopped celebrating to listen, raising weapons in a roar that shook the ship. "Bjorn and Elena, let the world burn for love." As chants echoed across waters, Elena felt her heart swell with pride and something deeper, love so fierce it frightened her. Raised as shield maiden, taught duty before desire, standing beside this incredible man who'd challenge gods for her sake, she understood some loves transcended mortal laws. "Where next?" she asked, knowing the answer. Bjorn's smile was sharp as blades. "King Harald considers joining the alliance against us. Time he learned what happens to kings who threaten what's mine. King Harold made a fatal mistake. Word of his consideration to join the alliance reached Raven's Fury on a cold morning, carried by a merchant seeking favor. Instead, he witnessed what happened when someone threatened Elena. Bjorn's fleet descended like wolves on wounded deer. 40 dragon ships filled the harbor, warriors howling battle cries echoing off stone walls. This wasn't raid for gold. This was a lesson written in fire and blood. Elena stood beside Bjorn on the beach as Harold's great hall burned, violet eyes reflecting dancing flames. She'd fought in battle, her sword drinking enemy blood, proving again why Valhalla bred the finest shield maidens. Now she watched enemy's world turn to ash with calm satisfaction. "You didn't need to burn the entire city," she said without rebuke. Harold's surrender would have been enough. Bjorn's gaze never left the inferno, consuming what had been a proud kingdom. Number half measures breed half loyalty. When word spreads what happened here, other kings will think twice before speaking our names with alliance. Surviving Harold, bloodied and broken, was dragged before them. The once proud king looked like a broken old man, crown lost in burning hall ruins. "Please," Harold gasped, falling to his knees. "I never joined them. I only said I'd consider." "And that consideration cost everything," Bjorn replied coldly. "Your kingdom burns not for what you did, but what you might have done." Elena stepped forward, presence commanding as any queen's. "Tell survivors what they witnessed. Tell them Lord Bjorn will burn the world before letting anyone separate us. Some loves are worth destroying empires for." As Harold was dragged away to spread word of their terrible mercy, Elena felt destiny settling around them like cloaks. They were no longer just lovers. They'd become legend, names whispered across the known world. Kings trembled at their approach. Armies fled rather than face fury of a man fighting for love. "The Alliance will move against us now," Elena said, watching the last fleet burn. "This forces their hand." Bjorn's smile was savage as winter. "Good. I'm tired of hunting cowards hiding behind politics. Let them come with armies and alliances. Let them learn what happens when mortals try standing against love that reshapes worlds." Sailing from burning remains of Harold's kingdom, warriors sang songs echoing through history. The world now knew beyond doubt that Lord Bjorn and Elena couldn't be stopped, reasoned with, and would burn everything beautiful before being parted. The Great Alliance moved like storm across northern seas. 50 kingdoms, 200 ships, 20,000 warriors united under one banner for the first time in Viking history. They came from every corner, Saxons seeking revenge for Londinium, Franks hungry to reclaim burned cities, Nordic jarls tired of watching trade routes turn to ash. At their head sailed something unprecedented, unified Viking lords who'd put aside generations of blood feuds to stop the man they called the Mad Wolf of the North. Aboard flagship Storm's End, Jarl Magnus studied battle plans. Intelligence suggested Bjorn had only 15 ships, impossible odds even for the legendary Iron Wolf. Yet something about his war council's certainty felt hollow, like men convincing themselves of victory against an enemy who'd never tasted defeat. "He'll run," declared Lord Eric confidently. "Even Bjorn isn't mad enough to face these odds. He'll sail for Iceland, maybe beyond the world's edge. Let him have his witch. They can rule seals and snow." But Magnus, older and wiser, felt ice forming in his veins as familiar war horns echoed across water. Through morning mist, dragon ships emerged like phantoms, not fleeing, but charging straight toward their massive fleet's heart. "By Thor's hammer," whispered a young Saxon lord, face pale as death. "They're actually coming? 15 ships against 200. He truly has gone mad." What they couldn't see was Elena standing at Raven's Fury's prow, violet eyes blazing with fury that had once brought down Troy's walls. Her raven hair streamed like war banners, sword in hand, singing with anticipation of blood it would drink. "Today we write our names in stars," she called to Bjorn over roaring wind and wave. "Today we show the world what happens when gods fall in love." Bjorn's laugh was wild as winter storms as he raised his great war axe toward the enemy fleet. "Let them come with thousands, let them come with alliances and fear. They'll learn 15 ships crewed by men fighting for love are worth more than 100 fleets sailing for mere gold." The battle cry erupting from his warriors shook the sea itself. These weren't just raiders. They were believers in something greater, men who'd witnessed their lord turn kingdoms to ash for love, and knew they served not just a warrior, but nature's force itself. As fleets closed distance, Magnus felt terrible certainty settle like shrouds. They'd come expecting to face a madman, but what approached through mist was something more dangerous, legend writing itself in blood and fire, with Elena and Bjorn as immortal protagonists. The battle that followed would be sung for 1,000 years. Elena fought like Valkyrie descended from Asgard, blade weaving death patterns through enemy ranks, as she and Bjorn carved across enemy decks. Where others saw impossible odds, they saw only obstacles between them and victory. The Alliance expected to crush 15 ships with overwhelming numbers. Instead, they found Bjorn's force moved like wolf packs, striking fast and disappearing into mist before larger fleets could bring numbers to bear. Each of Bjorn's ships crewed by veterans who'd followed him through dozen impossible victories, men believing their lord could walk on water if Elena asked. "They're cutting through our formations like knives through butter," Magnus shouted over clashing steel and dying screams. From Storm's End he watched in horror as ship after ship fell to Bjorn's tactical genius. The Mad Wolf wasn't fighting like Berserker, he fought like the greatest military mind of their age. Meanwhile, aboard Raven's Fury, Elena ducked under Saxon's wild swing and opened his throat with graceful dance movement. Blood splattered her leather armor as she spun facing the next attacker, violet eyes bright with battle joy. This wasn't slaughter, this was art painted crimson across enemy ship deck. "Behind you!" Bjorn's voice roared across chaos, and Elena dropped to one knee as his great war axe whistled overhead to split Frank's skull. They moved like two parts of same weapon, each protecting others' blind spots with intimacy born of absolute trust. "Is that all they've got?" Elena laughed, wiping enemy blood from her cheek. Around them, enemy ship burned as Bjorn's warriors finished its crew. 20,000 warriors fighting like frightened children. "They're fighting for gold and glory," Bjorn replied, pulling her close for fierce kiss-tasting of victory and violence. "We're fighting for something they can't understand. Love burning brighter than any fire they could imagine." As if summoned by his words, Alliance fleet began breaking apart. Ship after ship turned fleeing as word spread that Iron Wolf and his Shield Maiden cut through numbers like death itself. What began as great crusade to stop Madman became rout, survivors racing to escape reach of two people fighting like gods had blessed their cause. By sunset, sea was red with enemy blood, and the greatest alliance in Viking history lay broken on waves. Elena and Bjorn stood at Raven's Fury's prow, watching last enemy ships disappear over horizon, like shadows fleeing dawn. "They'll never come against us again," Elena said softly, finding his hand. "After today, our names will be spoken with fear reserved for storms and plagues." Bjorn pulled her close, ice-blue eyes reflecting burning enemy ships. "Let them fear us. Let them whisper our names in dark and thank gods they never face us. We've proven something today, echoing through eternity. True love is the most dangerous force in all 9 worlds." 3 months after the great battle, the world whispered their names. From Constantinople markets to Iceland mead halls, travelers spoke in hushed tones of Lord Bjorn the Iron Wolf and Elena of Valhalla, lovers who'd broken history's greatest alliance and made the sea run red with enemy blood. But victory came with its price. Standing on cliffs overlooking their stronghold on Raven's Isle, Elena watched horizons where no enemy ships dared appear. They'd won everything, yet constant war had begun, hollowing something inside her she hadn't expected to lose. "You're thinking too loudly," Bjorn said, approaching from behind and wrapping powerful arms around her waist. Even after all this time, his touch sent fire racing through her veins, but tonight something felt different in how she leaned against him. "I'm thinking about the future," Elena replied, violet eyes reflecting setting sun. "We've burned every kingdom standing against us, defeated every alliance trying to separate us. What happens now? Do we spend eternity searching new worlds to conquer, just proving our love?" Bjorn was quiet for long moments, and she felt the same thoughts settling between them. They'd become legend, but legends weren't meant for quiet domestic happiness. They were meant for grand gestures and epic battles and songs echoing through eternity. Perhaps, he said slowly, the greatest victory isn't proving our love to the world. Perhaps it's learning to live it in peace. The admission hung between them, like bridges they weren't sure they dared cross. For so long, their love had been defined by what they'd destroy for each other. Could it survive being defined by what they'd build instead? As if summoned by their thoughts, familiar voice spoke from shadows behind them. The greatest loves learn transforming from wildfire to hearth flame, said Sigrid the Wise, appearing like ghost from gathering dusk. One consumes everything in its path, the other warms homes for generations. Elena turned in Bjorn's arms to face the old vulva, surprised to see something like kindness in ancient eyes. You've come to gloat? Tell us love built on ashes can't last? I've come offering choice, Sigrid replied, leaning on runic staff. The gods have watched your saga with great interest. They offer this. Give up your war against the world, and they'll give you something no conquest could provide. What's that? Bjorn asked, voice carrying dangerous suspicion. Sigrid's smile was mysterious as morning mist. Peace, a chance discovering what your love looks like when it doesn't have to prove itself through destruction, a chance finding out if the two people beneath legend can be as extraordinary as the myth they've created. Elena felt her heart skip as understanding dawned. After all battles, all burning kingdoms, all blood spilled in love's name, the ultimate test wasn't whether they could destroy the world for each other, it was whether they'd choose to save it instead. What do you say, my love? Bjorn whispered against her hair. Shall we write different ending to our story? Elena turned facing him fully, seeing her hopes reflected in ice-blue eyes. Yes, she whispered, let's discover what legends do when they decide becoming human again. 1 year later, Raven's Isle had transformed from war fortress into something the world had never seen. Kingdom built not on conquest, but on revolutionary idea that love could create rather than destroy. Elena walked through thriving settlement around their stronghold, hand resting on gentle swell of her belly where new life grew. Changes were everywhere. Former enemies now worked alongside Bjorn's warriors, building ships for trade rather than war. Harbors that had launched raids now welcomed merchants from across the known world, drawn by stories of a place where different peoples could live in peace under protection of legendary couple who'd chosen love over vengeance. The delegation from Francia arrived this morning, Bjorn said, approaching with their daily ritual of watching sunset together. His transformation was as remarkable as Elena's, great war axe replaced by builder's tools, hands that had dealt only death now crafted cradles and carved toys for children playing in their halls. Let me guess, Elena smiled, leaning into his embrace. They want to establish permanent trading post, offering to name firstborn after us in gratitude for not burning Paris. Bjorn's laugh was warm with genuine happiness. Close. They're offering to make you godmother to French prince, and asking if we'd consider mediating their dispute with Saxon kingdoms. Apparently, having the world's most feared warriors choose peace carries more weight than any army. Elena marveled at irony. By giving up war against the world, they'd gained more influence than all victories combined. Kings who'd once fled their dragon ships now sought their counsel. The couple, who'd been the world's greatest threat, had become its most trusted peacekeepers. Our child will grow up in world we helped heal instead of one we conquered, Elena said softly, placing Bjorn's hand over life growing within her. They'll know their parents' love story was written not in blood and ashes, but in hope and second chances. As sun set over their peaceful kingdom, painting sky in gold and crimson shades, they stood together on cliffs where they'd once planned raids and now planned festivals. The legend of Lord Bjorn and Elena of Valhalla would live forever, not as destroyers, but as lovers who proved greatest victory was knowing when to stop fighting. Do you ever miss it? Bjorn asked quietly. The battles, fear in enemies' eyes, feeling of being unstoppable? Elena considered, then smiled as she felt their child move within her. How can I miss destroying the world when we've learned creating one instead? How can I miss being feared when we're now beloved? Our love story used to be about what we'd burn for each other. Now it's about what we'll build together. As night fell over Raven's Isle, Their people celebrated another day of peace, with songs and laughter carrying across water. Former Vikings and Saxons, Franks and Celts, all united under protection of two people who discovered strongest love wasn't measured by what you destroy, but what you choose to save. The song of burning empires had ended. The song of building paradise had just begun.